and welcome. It's me, Percita, and this is Percita's Paradox. Thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you, your time and effort and energy in finding me on this thing called YouTube. If you are new to this channel, thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate you today. And if you are an OG, my originals, I greatly appreciate you oh so well, as always, for your continued support. So today, I just wanted to make sure that we get on board and we are making ourselves better. What we are really going to focus on these next couple of months is really making ourselves better. And the first thing that makes us better is just really being okay with who we are, what we're trying to achieve in our lives, how we're planning to get there, and making sure that we are taking every precaution and every tool needed in order to structure a perfect, well, not quite perfect, but a very specific and designated plan on how we want to achieve our goals. So today, I just want to come on board and really talk to you about a few things. Let's just talk about business. If you're already into it and you're going to watch me to the end because you are dedicated to this channel, go ahead and hit the share button, let everybody in, get in here, make sure they know what's happening. And also, of course, you can comment if you want. Typically, I don't get a lot of comments because you guys, you just don't talk a lot. I would love for you to engage, but if that's not where you are, send me an email, send me a smoke screen, do whatever it is, but do something, right? Hit your notification button and definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button. I mean, come on. You want to see this face every single week? Make sure you do that by hitting the subscribe button. So here we are. First things first. How do we get going? What's the first thing that we need to make sure that we do? Well, I don't know if I could say this as being the first thing, but I want to talk to a population of people that I think get the short end of the stick on so many different ways because you don't necessarily get told what you need to be told, or your past has really orchestrated this idea in you that does not give you any sense of worth. So this body of people, this population of people are the people pleasers. And you might say, oh my God, what are you talking about? What are you going to say? What do you mean people pleasing? Okay, we're going to get into that, but here's the drill. Today, we want to really talk specifically about the people-pleasing population because we want to give you all, and I'm saying we, because I think collectively, if we do this together, this will be great. But you want to come together and really ID what people-pleasing really is and what's the root of why it's happening. So, question of the day. Are you a people pleaser? Now, I'm going to get right to the nitty gritty and dig right in and say, initially, I think that I was. And I think that I was such a people pleaser that I was willing to lie about it. I think that everything that I had ever been taught about myself and how I needed to function, especially in my childhood, was based on people pleasing. Now, I come from a long line of people pleasers. I usually say I come from a long line of cussers, and that's true. But I also come from a long line of people pleasing, and that people pleasing trait comes from the identity that I come from a long line of individuals, both men and women, who do not and have never been identified as independent thinking, self-worth driven people. Now you may say, well, that's a little harsh, Percita. Well, truth can be a little rough, but it's just the fact. To actually understand how and why people pleasing starts, you have to understand that it really comes from some type of a definition that was spun in your spirit from a very, very, very young age that then told you that your self-worth, who you are, what you are about, is based on making other people happy so that their happiness would then validate your worth. Now you may say, girl, that's a lot of words. It is. But the truth of the matter is that there's so many of us who still function in this vein of really wondering if we are worth anything because we are continuously looking for others to validate us. Now, when I say it comes from something rooted in your childhood, it typically comes from a parent or a grandparent, or I would say anyone that would be raising you, who really wanted you to continuously put your feelings, I won't say necessarily on the back burner, because I think people really identify feelings, but I think that they sometimes identify them as far as ranking which one is best and which one should actually have the most validity. Let's say it like that. So you think about it and you say, okay, well, everyone in my family was very loving and, whatever you want to say. typically you don't really find a lot of people who want to actually address this conversation, because it kind of puts you in a position where you would feel as if you are downing your childhood or your parents. And you probably love your parents. Hopefully that's the case. Or the people who, I should say, raised you. So therefore you're not really interested in identifying where it could have started from. And sometimes you don't even recognize that you're a people pleaser. You may be in a space where you're just like, no, I just like making people happy. And if I ask you straight away, like, what makes you happy, and you say making other people happy, then you would have to know that that's the first definition of people pleasing, because others cannot determine your happiness. Because if that's the case, then you could never be happy on your own, because you would continuously need a dependent to do that. Does that make sense? So back to what I'm saying. You want to be in a space that you understand that when you are focusing on people pleasing or pleasing others other than yourself, you just keep a funnel of emotions that continuously drain and deplete you in ways you can't even express. So thinking about it again from the childhood aspect, you're always needing to know that you were taught whatever it is that you are going through. So if people pleasing was what was in the household, then that's what you're going to absolutely do. You'll know it even to this day, just to reflect on it a little bit more, because if you have parents that are still alive and you find yourself needing to please them before you please yourself, or making sure that they're happy with your decisions before they really reflect your own needs and desires, then that would definitely fall under people pleasing. Does that make sense? So first thing you want to really identify is what I just said. Why are you people pleasing? Where does it come from? What's the root? And if you understand what I said about the childhood thing, then you'd have to really kind of find yourself going back to that and really figuring out where it began and how it began, because this is really a foundational conversation. So you want to know that. You really want to be in a space of, again, not passing blame, not feeling as if you got the short end of the stick, because you did not. You want to feel more in a line of that was something that you needed to go through. We don't know why, but if we agree that everything happens for a reason and God is always in control, then you understand that even in this conversation, you have now the ability to fix it. And that's what we're doing. So don't try to think about it like that. Outside of that, the second thing that you want to do is you want to ask yourself, when does it happen? And you might say, well, what do you mean, when does it happen? It typically happens when you're not feeling very good about yourself. It typically happens when you want to tie what you're doing to making you feel better about yourself. Sometimes you'll acquire a job, or you'll be in a relationship, or you'll live a certain place because you feel like it gives you validity, or you'll buy things or do something that really outwardly expresses who you want others to see you to be. Because remember, people pleasing is about really getting the attention based on people's admiration and validation to yourself. So you want to figure out, when is it happening? And what is triggering in you that is causing you to do it? What emotion are you going through? Meaning fear, disappointment, whatever the proponent of that emotion is. Which one are you going through to want to find a way to make other people happy? A lot of times it happens with loneliness. And that typically happens, of course, because validation, people, environment, groups, anything like that, wanting to belong, you feel most disconnected when you feel as if you are alone. So loneliness has a tendency to put people in a people-pleasing platform or atmosphere. It also puts you there if you don't want to ever be lonely, if you fear loneliness, if that makes any sense. So you may want to, really chill sometimes and not necessarily be an extrovert and out in everyone's face. And you may say, well, see, because of that, I know that I'm not a people pleaser. But to be perfectly honest with you, most people pleasing people are both. They're introverts and extroverts. Now, again, remember, when I'm saying extrovert, I'm not talking about the silly person, right? The life of the party person who, again, wants to make sure that everyone's having a good time and so on and so forth. That, again, still falls into people pleasing. Be conscious of what I'm saying in regards to the person who just wants to be bold and seen quote unquote, typically is a person who does not necessarily want to be people pleasing, but enjoys more of the attention of their self command or self worth. Now, again, it's a super thin line. When I tell you it's a super thin line, it is so super thin, because you will still find people who, again, like to do things for shock factor. So you want to really, really pay attention to the person as a sum total, as a whole, not just based on an action, right? Introverts, are typically in a space where you would say, well, but they don't really care what people think. But they kind of do, but they're very specific on who they care about. An extrovert is, an extrovert for the most part, who is a people pleaser, is going to care about the sum total of the room. The extrovert, a person who really, again, is just going to be more like the introvert in the sense of they're caring about a specific body of people, would be the people pleasing area that we're talking about as well. And the introvert, who literally is in a space of, you think, not really caring about what you think, what you feel about them, or how you validate them. But it just really typically depends on who the introvert is around and who they care about, because they still absolutely care. It's just kind of funny how the personalities come off, where one, you can outwardly see it and the other you can't, right? So when you think of celebrity, a lot of times you think a celebrity wants the attention because that's what they're getting, is attention. But typically a celebrity is an introvert. Typically a celebrity has put themselves in a place where they can't really care about what people think, because if they did, then they wouldn't really be able to do their job. Does that make sense? So that's why I say it's a very thin line, because there's also that person who is the celebrity who still loves all of the attention and wants to care about the people and cares more about the people than themselves. So you can't really pinpoint it into just introvert or extrovert, but just to give you the dynamic on how they both work, there's that part. So after you've decided when, because I gave you all of that to really go, it really can run the gambit, you really want to ask yourself why, right? Why? Why is it so important? And what about you really feels as if you need someone to tell you something great about you? Once you can really identify what that is, and again, it comes from just a sense of lack of self-worth. And it's crazy because when we say self, being that it's like within you and you have to validate and you have to affirm and you have to really see it. It's funny how the world can tell you that that type of a person who doesn't want to be a people-pleasing person could then be either conceited or stuck up or over the top. And you just have to really come to grips with, like, again, if you fall susceptible to caring about that, then you're right back into people-pleasing. So it becomes this thing where you're fighting individually. You're fighting for yourself so strongly that you just are not going to allow anyone to define you. Now, there are also going to be the people who love you as they see you and they want to be there, and you're fine with that. And you appreciate that validation because it's not hung up or associated with any action that you're doing specifically either for them, to them, or with them, right? They just love you. Few and far between. Very, very, very complicated. Some of us have the blessing of having those type of parents, and some of us have the blessing of being in those type of households from childhood. So again, this isn't really a part of who you are. But you want, if you are that person, let me say this, then you want to understand better why most people really suffer with this idea of self-worth. Because everything that we all go through is going to just be ever changing. So it's very complicated to be okay with it. It equates to what I was saying in the last video in regards to how complicated it is to just really be okay with whatever it is that you're going through and understanding that yours is yours. I think I put a message up, or I should say a caption up on Instagram a couple of days ago, and I was just talking about how all I had was me and me, myself, and I. And I chuckled because one person actually commented back, like, they sometimes have a problem with people who are too self-absorbed in regards to their self-efficacy and loving on themselves and thinking that all they need is themselves. Now, if you think about what I'm saying, and let's just say the person was talking about a spiritual aspect, if the person understood what they were saying in regards to self-worth and self-love, then they would know that I would have had a spiritual connection in regards to make that statement, because I would then believe that there was a God in me and a God that I serve, and there would then have some type of connection in regards to how I then view myself, right? Because I would then be a mirror image of whatever I would be, won't necessarily say worshiping, but for a lack of better words, let me just say it that way, right? But I realized that this person didn't understand that at all. Because typically when you hear someone complain about you saying that, it's because they don't understand that point, and they also are not there. So you want to be clear again on who you're speaking to in regards to what we're talking about, because it can go all over the place. All over the place. So I say that to say, once you figured out the why, you have to figure out the now what. And the now what really becomes after you have determined and self-diagnosed yourself as to where you are and what you want to do. You really have to decide on what's important to you. Hopefully at the end of this journey, you will see that you are the most important thing. And that if people do not like you or enjoy you, it's just you haven't found the people who do. It's not that you necessarily need to change. Typically, it's the fact that you have not then been around people who literally light up and start to smile when they see you. And that's very complicated sometimes to say, because sometimes we want people that we're currently with to change their tune about how they feel about us from an inward or outward expression. Maybe you've been hurt by friends or by family or by spouses, exes, boyfriends, and girlfriends. It could be a plethora of people. Maybe you've fallen in love with the idea of someone or the idea of a relationship. And all of that's very true, very valid. But I want you to understand that at the end of everything that I'm saying, what I'm trying to tell you is that you are the worth. You are the prize. You are the ticket into Wonka land. You are the one. You are the golden ticket. So you have to believe that. You have to believe that to the degree you're literally willing to put your life on the line for it, because you're going to get things and see things and do things that are proprietary just to you. So if you don't understand that, then you can see how it becomes a little complicated in regards to how you can get past people pleasing. Because people will never be satisfied. How do we know? You can look at any genre of anything across the board. There's going to be people who like it, and there's going to be people who don't. There's going to be people who like you, and there's going to be people who do not like you. You're not always wanting to be in an idea that you only are going to be around the people who like you, because that's not possible. And it's not realistic. You want to learn to cope. You want to learn to understand. It's kind of what I was talking about in regards to healing. You never really heal. You learn to cope. And once you learn to cope, then you understand that this is something that is definitely going to pass, because there's nothing that is forever, right? And you may say, well, what do you mean about healing? I keep promising you this video, but this isn't the video I'm going to talk about it either. But let's just say it this way. If healing was the true way that we want to say it, then we wouldn't have triggers. And if we didn't have triggers, then we wouldn't be able to say that we were healed, because they go hand in hand. So the fact that you are always then put in a position where something can bring you back into a space and trigger you should get you to understand on why I'm saying coping to some degree. But I'll go deeper, just not today. So in saying all of that, we really still want to stay very, very strong on what we're talking about in regards to people pleasing. And you really want to understand that people will fail people, meaning most of the people you're trying to impress don't like themselves. So to take any type of criticism from people who are not in a space that they can wholeheartedly give it to you properly is why I'm telling you to absolutely not lean on that. And you may say, well, why do you say that, Percita? Well, because we all struggle. And even when we don't want to envy, and even when we don't want to act as if things are bothering us, we're always comparing ourselves. We can't help it. It's kind of why God came to this earth. It's kind of why all of this Jesus thing had to happen, because we are already going to be a certain kind of a person, right? And being that, we're never not that. We're just in a position now that we can choose. So after all of that, I just want to tell you that I greatly appreciate you coming on to the channel today. I appreciate your time and everything that you do for me in regards to keeping this channel afloat. Before you can do any of the stuff that I said, I want you to know that I need you to understand that you have to live your life in an authentic manner. And what that means is being true to yourself, being true to your desires and your goals does not make you selfish. It makes you self-aware. And understanding your purpose and understanding what God has given you is only for you is all that matters. So at the end of the day, understand that you are the one. You are the chosen one for whatever it is you're chosen for. So don't think anyone's chosen is better than your chosen, because yours is yours alone. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Remember to do 3 things before you do any of the things I just said. And that is live life authentic. Thank you as always. Please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe and hit the notification button as I said at the top of the video. And if you have any suggestions you want to see in the video or anything of the sort, feel free to hit me in the comments or send me an email. As always, have a blessed day. Happy Mother's Day for all of the mothers out there. Make sure that you love on your mother if you have that ability. If your mother is gone, my prayers are with you, because I know that this can also be a very hard time for you. And if you're not close to your mom and if you're not really feeling connected, I also extend my prayers out to you, that there is some type of connection that brings you back together to see the validation in both of you on both ends. As always, happy Mother's Day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.